All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into tonight's video. To be clear, we're going over to the Fresh and Fit podcast here in downtown. We got Brandon Carter in the car, but you can't see him right now. He's in there vlogging. We're gonna be doing a little joint podcast. And listen to this, the whole intention of tonight's video, I'm gonna demonstrate for you in real time how propaganda creation works. So going onto a podcast like this, you can get a ton of clips, obviously. This is gonna be a good 2 hours long. The last time I went on this, it was a good hour and 55 minutes. I was getting $1.07 per view when I was distributing the full hour and 55-minute video to get somebody to watch 100% of it. In addition to the whole length in which I can post on Facebook and distribute and spend money on to get people retargetable, I'm obviously gonna be clip farming here. So the intention is when we clip farm, we wanna be very proactive about what we're gonna attempt to clip. When you think about it from a perspective of propaganda creation, right? Pieces of content that can aid your sales process at different stages, you become a lot more intentional about what you're gonna talk about rather than random, which is what most people do. A lot of people go on a podcast and like, yeah, you know, they expect some clips, but they don't necessarily get the clips that are actually gonna benefit their sales process because they're not thinking with propaganda. So long story short, I think you're in for a real treat. We're gonna film two things, right? This is how this is gonna flow. We're gonna film the actual podcast itself, and I'm gonna specifically show you and highlight a few key propaganda examples that I think I'm gonna be able to pull, and then I'll do something like this after the fact where you see me do the clip, and then I talk about why and how I think that specific piece of propaganda is gonna benefit my sales process. So we're gonna go clip, explanation, and we'll do that a few times over in a cycle. Who knows how many times we'll do it, but I promise you one thing, this will be an incredible video. I'll do it for myself, and I'll also do it for Mr. Brandon Carter here in the car. So without further ado, let's head on over to the Fresh and Fit podcast. Okay, so yeah, the podcast went great. Had a really good time with Myron and Fresh. Thanks for having me on, guys. Really encourage checking out their podcast, especially the Money Monday episodes, in the instance that you want to learn from other guests that they have on there. Shout out to Brandon Carter as well, the big BBC pause. We're officially going to do what I said at the beginning of the video, okay? We're going to watch a clip that I intentionally pulled here that we're going to use inside of one of my propaganda ad campaigns for my marketing agency, my education company, and then we're going to do a little analysis here in the penthouse on what went down, why it works, what we're gonna use it for, and how I'm thinking about it after the fact. Yeah, we'll go through that now. Let's check out the first clip.
You mentioned last show confidence, how most men don't have that confidence at all. Jeremy, how would you define guys getting confidence from the very beginning?
Dude, I think certainty and confidence comes from taking action, proving you could do what you say you're gonna do, and having consistency. A lot of that, dude, I've had so many people I've taught over the years that when they're first getting started, that's one of the biggest things they struggle with. They think that confidence comes first, and then you follow up with the action, and that's the opposite. You start with the action, you retain consistency, and to be clear, you consistently prove to yourself that you're gonna do what it is that you say you're gonna do, and you start over a broad duration of time. It's an undefined, unknown period of time. It could be a week, it could be like 3 months of doing the same shit repetitively until you eventually start to see the result. And obviously you barely ever see results at the very beginning of taking action, which is also where most people give up, especially nowadays. Think about the instantaneousness of our society nowadays. I don't like a piece of content, peace. I wanna get food. How long does it take you to get something around here? You know what I mean? It's like
minutes.
Dude, it's all like at the fucking snap of our fingers. Like everything's within an hour now. We want to send money to each other. It's like it's all fast nowadays. To be clear, dude, getting results and like making a fuckload more money, especially when you have no momentum and you're at like $0 or whatever your job's paying you, getting your first 10K outside of that. I mean, once again, longer duration of time than what you want to endure. But if you endure through it, right, that's when the confidence kicks right after. And once again, momentum-wise, like it just gets easier. You get more confident. You don't necessarily get more cocky, to be fair. Yeah. But you get like more of a natural, I can actually do this shit kind of feeling, All right, so this clip has everything to do with framing, okay? A lot of people who are considering buying into some kind of self-education program, something that can move them forward, there can be a lot of mental doubts and essentially self-limitations, self-imposed limitations that can hold an individual back from helping themselves, buying into whatever it is that you're selling. In this case is a course or an info product. And it's very important to understand, one of the most common beliefs that kind of holds people back is that they should already be confident, that they should already be certain, certain before they actually go and buy. So to be clear, this specific piece of content, this would be incredible as an example if I get people who like go to a website where there's an info product or like a webinar, maybe they registered, maybe they even like booked a sales call or something. I could stuff this piece of content in front of them prior to them either getting onto the sales call or prior to them seeing another direct response ad to book a call or join a webinar or take essentially whatever action. The point I'm trying to make, it's important to note, okay? This piece of content is incredible for the framing that comes with info products, okay? We're gonna do clip 2 now. There's a really good quote. It's called a mental model, okay? You don't know what you don't know, okay? And if you treat yourself like almost like a blank software program, like a computer, like you wanna be operating on like Windows 98 in fucking 2024 and beyond? Hell no. You wanna consistently update your software, which really comes down once again to updating that mental state. If you have little beliefs like this, and you see in yourself right now, like, oh, I wouldn't be willing to ask that guy a good quality question. I didn't even know what kind of quality question to ask. I wouldn't be willing to search it on YouTube because I wouldn't think I could go and do that shit. Right. I don't consider like the advancement of the future and how to get in that guy's shoes is just one step at a time, one good question getting answered at a time, one new thing that I figure out at a time, and then just taking action on that stuff. It's all brick by brick, All right, for the second clip, you don't know what you don't know, okay? A classic way to be able to tell an individual, you've only got whatever data is in your head to think with, and new data can lead you to opportunities to take new actions because you can literally only think with what you currently know. So adding additional perspective, especially trusted perspective, can be extremely powerful, and give you an opportunity to be able to create new beliefs, new ways of thinking, new actions. And this is essentially an incredible way to plant the right kind of worldview that when you acquire new data, you get opportunities to do new things. You get opportunities to potentially make more money or get whatever result it is that you're after, that you're struggling with now, because you managed to obtain more information that, whether you're aware of it or not, allowed you to kind of manipulate the way you're thinking into a more beneficial way. So to be clear, this is great for the, self-education space, personal development space, which is essentially, once again, like, remember I told you at the beginning of the video, I'm trying to clip farm here for my own usage in my education company where I could interject this different content at. This will help people who are at a lower level, a higher level. I've had that quote from it was actually from the CIA director, an old CIA director, and long story short, he got up and he was like, how in the world did this attack happen on our great country? And he said, there's known knowns, things that we know. There's known unknowns, things that we know that we don't know. And then there's unknown unknowns, that is which we aren't even aware that we don't know, and of course we don't know it. And that quote stuck with me forever. So I myself have seen the positive benefit of what that does. And then to be clear, I say it all the time because I've also obviously seen the benefit in others inheriting that as a belief themselves. So that one's a real good one. All right, now we're gonna do clip 3.
Now let's go talk about, which Jeremy, you could talk more about this, 10K to that 100K mark a month. How do people like
100K mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll say 10 to 100, yeah, in that range.
So to be clear, usually when you achieve the 10 and you get somewhere between 10 and 100, you've officially like gotten in business, Yeah. And then it's a game of amplification.
There you go.
And you find a few things out. Number one, you either fall victim to the unfortunate mindset that it's more than what it actually is, okay? So as an example, I had a guy the other day, he was at like 20-ish K a month. He'd get at max to like 50K a month, and then he'd just go fuck off. Like he'd take trips. His girl would start fucking hitting him up and be like, oh, we need to go on like fucking this European trip and shit.
Sure.
Anyway, moral of the story, he'd get to this point where like he'd repeat this cycle, like 20 to 50, 20 to 50, 20 to 50. And it was, I don't know, a repeated cycle that he probably did like a good 4 or 5 times. Point being, he gets in this mindset that it's enough money for him, okay? Think about how devious that can be. I was like, usually between 10 and 50K, 50 to 100, there's a little difference there, but to be fair, it's expansion of like what you view as possible. It's like, you gotta start treating it like a real business. You gotta start looking at expansion and amplification. You know what I mean? Usually outside of the mindset debacle that you get into when it comes to like limitations and perceived what's a lot, the other part of it, when I say amplification, you can't settle in, right? So when I said at the very beginning of what I did, I just pitched the fuck out of businesses day in and day out and day in and day out. Guess how much I made in my first 45 days of being in business as a marketing agency?
How much?
100K?
I did 50K in the first 45 days.
Nice.
Okay? And immediately I was like, okay, I get this now. I need to have a repeatable process for sales. I need to get salespeople in this thing. You know, I need to start systematizing shit. I need to get people who are constantly pitching on this business's behalf. I need to keep pitching. This is one of my favorites too. You have to enlighten people to their own circumstances. As crazy as it might sound, some people just get kind of so busy, you know, or some people lack self-awareness. There's a statistic, if I'm not mistaken, it's only like 20 to 25% of the entire earth is self-aware. It might even be lower than that, depending on who you read the statistic from and you know what psychology source you get that data from once again. But to be clear, dude, telling people where they're at and having them see it from a new perspective, sometimes that's all it takes. You know, sometimes that's really all it takes. Bringing people to self-awareness, letting them know, look, I've been there, it's relatable, I've seen it a bunch of times, and here's how to overcome it. And to be clear, the thing that they use to overcome it should ideally be whatever it is that you're gonna sell or whatever it is, once again, that can actually benefit them. So yeah, this is incredible, once again, enlightening people to their circumstances and relatability. All right, clip 4. The other thing people fall victim to is that like either or mentality when they're getting started. Somewhere between 10 and 50, 50 to 100, you reach this point where simply put, you fall victim to like, I'm only gonna do sales or I'm only gonna deliver. And then you stop getting new deals when you only deliver, and then you gotta go back to doing sales, and you get this like either or shit going, you know what I mean?
That's one of the reasons why.
Because they're both so fucking labor intensive that this is where,
Yeah, and you don't have enough money yet to start just throwing people at it and like getting a lot of solutions in place. So what do you find yourself doing? All that shit yourself. So like at the end of the day, you won't do both, because then technically you're working more than what you've ever done before. So your problems technically, as you start making more money, they start to compound. They don't go away. They get more sophisticated and they grow in quantity, right? So at the end of the day, when you reach that like first problem I brought up, like the satisfactory, I've got enough, that can also come from almost being like, okay, I'm tired and I don't want to have to do a lot more. But that's actually the booby trap. That booby trap right there fucks people, because you do need more money to make it far easier for yourself and to make far more money and reduce that burden of the time investment. Yeah, so this one's pretty much the same explanation as the last one, except at a higher level. It's really important, like we did there in that clip, we talked about the $50,000 to $100,000 a month range, which just kind of amplifies the fact that we are targeting that specific individual with that piece of content. And then same lessons as last time, relatability, explaining their situations to themselves, and then plugging them what they need to do next. All great once again. Let's go to the next one. As crazy as it might sound to some of y'all listen to this, dude, sub 100K a month, you're in a high risk position. Like you're still technically close to death at $0. Yep. You know, you got to get as far away from that shit as you can. But to be fair, fixed expenses, right? You hire somebody, what are you doing? That's
raising your fixed expenses.
Yeah, bro, at the end of the day, you're raising your fixed costs, but you're also, what do? I mean, you become financially responsible for them.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
You know, it's a huge responsibility. It's not just something that you should fuck around with and just like hire people for the fuck of it and you fire them, you know? Like you really got to take that responsibility serious at the end of the day. If once again, you want to be a good person anyway. Okay, so I love doing this. It's important to note, having more money is extremely important, and I do genuinely believe that. Just to be clear, I believe all these things obviously that I'm talking about. It's not just like for manipulation tactics with propaganda, but at the end of the day, this is one of the biggest things that holds people back from being able to make more money and take risks, okay? Like when you get to 100K a month and you start off at zero and like you grew up poor, like middle class or whatever, or even if just, you know, you did it on your own for the first time, this can be like a very troubling mindset. It creates this like stickiness to the level of income they're at. I found people, as an example, they're at like 200K a month for years and years and years. For some reason, the most common thing that I see in terms of like income ranges is somewhere like sub 300K a month. People just get stuck, and there is a level of like comfort and satisfaction, and like, you know, you're not willing to like risk what you've already got, but you know you need to take big risks in order to get to that next level. A piece of content like this comes across your plate, and dude, it can light that fire under your ass to be like, okay, you know, this guy gets it. I need to reach out to him and like hear what he's got to say about this kind of stuff. This is, I call it like sticky content, sticky propaganda. This creates an effect where they have a high probability to like click to your profile and like look at all the other stuff that you're talking about, and you know, kind of expanding on this topic. But it also creates incredible framing whether they do that action or not. This lets them know once again, like, dude, you gotta get some fire into your ass and like start taking action again. Which once again, when you get somebody in the state of action, that can benefit you, but more importantly than anything else, we can benefit the person who's obviously gonna start taking action and improving their life again. So yeah, great. Let's go to the next one.
Well, I guess, Jeremy, the question is, when does somebody start using ads for the business?
And how do you go about it?
So it's essentially, believe it or not, it's kind of like asking, when's the appropriate time to start gambling? Okay? As crazy as that might sound, really think about this real quick. So it's, as an example, if I told you, okay, you need to start trading, okay? What's trading to somebody with no money? With no edge, with no strategy?
Gambling.
It's gambling, okay? If, to be clear, like I know people who literally go gamble that have strategies when they go gamble that have large sums of money to gamble with, where the statistical probability actually becomes in their favor instead of the casino's favor. Advertising is kind of the same thing, believe it or not, as silly as that might sound. It's essentially, at what point do you officially have enough cash where you can gamble, okay? So as an example, you can gamble at different levels. There's people, I totally agree with what Brandon said, 0 to 10K a month, you don't even have any money to start gambling anyway and start advertising. It makes no sense. Even between 10 and 100K a month, like, you know, sure, you could start spending a little bit of money, but you have to spend enough to get it to become in your favor.
Gotcha.
If you spend too little on advertising, the house actually has a higher probability to win and just take your money. Cool. These ad platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, any ad platform for that matter, they all have the edge until you start spending a certain amount. The minimum, like the bare minimum I encourage people to spend on one campaign is $100 a day, okay? Which is $100 a day, 30 days, that's 3K a month, okay? And that's tiny. The issue with like spending so little, it takes a long period of time to acquire data. When you're advertising, you need enough data to be able to make decisions with. If you don't have enough data or you're impatient, which most people are, because keep in mind, okay, if you're only gambling 3K, right? Think about this. Are you gonna be patient? Are you gonna be as patient as you need to be to wait like 3-4 weeks to start making decisions on like whether you should turn that shit on or off or up or down? No, you're gonna be tweaking like day one, dude.
Go crazy.
You're gonna be tweaking, especially if you're first time gambling on it. You see what I'm saying? Versus, okay, we get people as an example who are spending upwards of 30 to 50K in a month, okay? And that's, believe it or not, their test budget, $1,000 a day to like $1,400, $1,500 a day. That allows you, in a direct example, to start making decisions within like 72 hours. Start making decisions within like, you know, a day in some instances, you know, just based on data acquisition. Okay, so I love using this comparison, first of all. It's one of my favorite comparisons, analogies, metaphors, okay? But it creates a very important perspective in the mind of somebody who is advertising. Whether they're not spending any money and they're considering it, which is what it seems like the content is talking to here, or you're already spending a shitload of money. You kind of realize, like, you get this like moment of self-awareness where you're like, huh, yeah, it is kind of like gambling, and I do need an edge. And I compared it to two key things. I compared it to casinos, and I compared it to trading, both of which you need an edge in order to have a high probability of success. Otherwise, the house has the edge over you, and you have a high probability of failure. And advertising, to be fair, is no different. I do believe that. But to be clear, this clip, keep in mind, like, I sell digital marketing education, and I've spent so much on advertising and marketing and like sales that I can lend like a really good perspective to people when they understand, like, dude, strategies, from ad strategies to funnel strategies to like little tactics, you know, to like plugs that you need to like unban stuff, you know, there's all kinds of stuff that you need. And once again, perspective, getting the edge is what gives you a higher probability to be able to get a higher ROAS, make more money. And I've seen this clip, once again, it actualizes everybody across the board, whether once again, you're just getting started, or whether you're already spending a couple $100 grand, maybe even a couple $1 million a month. I've seen that hook work. So anyway, love this one. Let's go to clip 7 here.
You mentioned Amazon, Jeremy. What were you going to say about
Amazon? No, so listen to this, right? Amazon, when they run a split test, okay, like as an example, they change the color of a button from like one shade of orange to another. Think about the quantity of people they get on their platform within like an hour. Okay. They could do what, as an example, somebody spending like $100,000 in a month, okay, wouldn't be able to do in like 3 months. Amazon can make that decision in an hour because of the amount of data that they acquire. So when you spend too little dollars, you don't acquire data, and you're typically impatient when you spend too little dollars. So to be fair, once again, it's not advisable if you're impatient and don't have a big budget to start spending money on ads, especially if you got something figured out organically. Okay, I love it when clients come, when students come, mentally frame that like you gotta spend enough to actually create a meaningful impact. Like I had one of my Inner Circle students earlier today, they launched a campaign like 2 days ago. They spent like no money on it, it was like $100, okay? And they had 2 leads and like little to no data. And they're like, oh, anything you see here? And I'm like, no. Like, no, absolutely not, you know? There's no data to look at. You gotta acquire enough data to be able to make decisions. So this does a lot of things for me. And selfishly, the first one, which, and once again, it's definitely the most selfish and doesn't really have any monetary benefit, is just getting people to understand. Like, don't talk to me about like little bits of data like that, because it's not even a conversation to have. You gotta get more data. But 2, and this is where I get a monetary benefit, is when people spend more money with us as a marketing agency, we have a higher probability to make them more money. And because we do rev shares, we have a higher probability to make more money too. We also acquire enough data fast enough to be able to make critical decisions for improvements, optimizations, and once again, things that are gonna result in everybody making more money. So point being in this one, this is a like, dude, you got to spend enough. You know, I want this thought to be in somebody's head when they're working with us, because it rings true in like every situation in advertising and marketing. Without enough data, you can't do shit, okay? All right, next one. I was talking to a guy earlier today, his name's Ash. And Ash, he is a marketing agency that pitches dental offices, okay? And he's in the UK. Ash is out here, he's spending $50 to $100 a day, okay? And he's getting like he's optimizing for what's called a booked call funnel, meaning he's running traffic from Facebook and Instagram to a page that says, hey, if you want me to help you with this service and you're a dentist, book a call, okay? So he's optimizing his campaign for getting booked calls. To be clear, he was getting like 1 to maybe 2 booked calls every like 4 to 6 days, okay? And he's tweaking the fuck out within that 4 to 6 days where he's not getting a call
And he was
yet.
only spending $3K a month, right?
Barely. Like initially maybe like $50 to like $100,
3K
okay?
a month?
3K a month, yeah. So like $50 a day to like $100 a day, okay? So not even technically 1,500 to 3K, okay? Now to be clear, he hits me up and he's like, oh, like what am I doing? Like, you know, I'm not getting any results. And I'm like, well, dog, no, you're getting results. Like you have a cost per qualified call, it looks like, of like $300. Yeah. But you got to spend $300 to see one call. So if you're spending $50 a day, you know, it's going to take you almost a week to generate that one call. So you gotta chill the fuck out in the meantime and wait, or you gotta spend more money. Like if you just spent double, if you spent $100 a day, and this is what made him double it. If you double it, you condense that time frame in half as a result. And the same logic applies again. You double it again from 100 to 200. Now you're gonna be getting a call every day and a half, you know, and you're gonna end up like 7, 8 calls in a week, maybe at the lowest 6. You see, versus in a month right now, he's probable to get at most like 4. If he would get up to $200 a day, he'd be getting like 6, 7, 8 calls in a week in comparison.
Which increases his chances of closing and making the money.
100%. Okay, so same concept as what I was just talking about. I need people to understand spending enough is going to condense time frames. The last clip that we saw, the one before this to be clear, that specifically covered the idea of data acquisition and being able to make key decisions based on enough data. Okay, this specific clip is, okay, if you're impatient, you can condense the time frame by spending double. And remember, I already explained the monetary benefit of this. When people spend more money and we have a rev share with that relationship, they have a higher probability to make money, therefore we have a higher probability to make more money ourselves because of our rev shares. Or even in student cases, like take an inner circle member as an example like Ash. Him spending more money increases the quantity of calls he gets in that example, which increases the quantity of people he's gonna have sales calls with, which increases the quantity of people he's gonna close, which therefore justifies his return on investment being inside of that group. Okay, so it's like everybody benefits in this case financially. It's not just a selfish thing, to be clear. But this idea, okay, outside of just those monetary benefits of condensing timelines, also creates like a subliminal urgency. You know, it puts you in a position of like, I'm gonna take risks and I wanna be urgent about it, which are like the subliminal things I'm trying to articulate in this, more to the subconscious in comparison to what's coming in, you know, through the conscious senses here about what I'm talking about on the surface level, right? So, okay, let's go to the next clip. I like to work in multiples of 100, where I always tell people, I say, listen, if you're gonna spend at least $100 a day, okay, ideally you don't make a decision until you get 100 people to the website. If you work in multiples of 100, simply put, there's a greater probability with whatever changes you make or whatever the data's telling you need to do, that decision's gonna be smarter, right? If you make decisions, let's use the example, you get like 10 people that hit your website. Yeah. Is that conclusive enough to make like any real decision that's gonna be smart? Like hell no. So same logic, like you don't spend enough, you gotta wait fucking weeks, sometimes months to like acquire the same amount of data as somebody who's willing to risk more. So like I said, when you look at it like gambling, right? Dude, when I was broke, I mean, still today, by the way, I don't feel comfortable going to a casino and like fucking dropping money on blackjack or something because I don't know the game, right? So in addition to advertising, like don't just go raw dog it, you know? Don't go in there fucking raw dogging it just thinking you're gonna be able to turn money into more money. You gotta go in educated about whatever the hell is gonna make it work or not work, okay? And then that dramatically increases the probability you turn that dollar into $2. So 2 things once again. Have a gambling budget where you're like, what's that mean, right? It means, okay, I'm willing to lose it in the instance that it doesn't work.
Gotcha.
You chalk it up as a business as data acquisition. But in reality, that's not the point of advertising. The point of advertising is to turn $1 into more than $1, right? That's the best case scenario. Okay, this is reiterating obviously the same points that I've already made, so I won't go into a deep analysis on this one, but I do want to explain one important thing. You can say the same thing from multiple perspectives. I use this example, I was with my grandfather, we were walking on a trail, saw a pine tree and it looked like it was dead or like caught on fire, and it just, I don't know, it was kind of crazy to me. It was amongst a bunch of other healthy trees and I was kind of confused, so caught my eye, pointed out, I was like, yo, what happened to that tree over there? And he explained there was some like beetle that was like ravagely eating all these fucking pine trees in the Colorado woods from the inside out and killing them. So like maybe that was the case, you know, whatever, we didn't dwell on it, we kept walking. And as we walked, like, you know, our perspective kind of kind of changed on, you know, what we were looking at. And I remember we looked back to try to find the tree after we had gotten maybe a quarter mile along the trail, and we had gone up in elevation, so we definitely should have been able to see it, but we couldn't see it anymore. And I was like, man, what the fuck happened to that tree? You know, like, where'd it go? And he explained this simple lesson. He was like, look, what you're looking at here, what I'm looking at here, you know, what other people are looking at, it's important to understand, like, all of our perspectives are technically true, but they're also all different while looking at the exact same thing, okay? So I can take the same concept and I can articulate it a particular way, but like, I can articulate it from so many other perspectives and ways too. And remember, like, the point that I'm attempting to make, I want to ensure that the point is made. And some stories or some specific clips, like the opening clip, the opening part, the hook, the middle part, like maybe I lose somebody along the way. If I just, same point I'm trying to emphasize, but from another angle, I have a higher probability to get that point across or just reaffirm it to the people who I already made the point to. So this is usually smart. Don't be afraid to like repeat things, but from another perspective. All right, next one.
I think it's really important that you guys put it out there for the audience, because like most people, regular people think, I'm advertising to make money back. But in the beginning, you're advertising to collect data so that you can make the money back. I think that's very important for people.
Like I said, you gotta be willing to walk in the casino and be like, all right, I got $1,000, you know, and that's all I'm willing to lose here today. Yeah. If I lose it, I'm gonna chalk it up as I had fun. Maybe I got a few drinks out of it, or like, you know, maybe I had like a free meal or some shit. But like at the end of the day, you gotta be fully comfortable losing it, right? You don't wanna lose it though. Yeah. You don't wanna go out of the casino and be like, if I could lost $1,000. Yeah. Advertising is incredible, but it's not guaranteed to generate revenue. It's a high probability, once again, when you got a good edge and there's a bunch of variables that align perfectly, especially when you're trying to hit $1 million months, you know, everything's gotta align. But to be clear, at the same time, like, dude, it's a risk, you know? This clip, short, punctual, all oriented towards settling that anxiety that comes from taking substantial risks, you know, letting you know, like Myron said at the beginning, could be data acquisition, which is what most people chalk it up to when they lose money advertising. But at the same time, it's not about that. It's not the point or the emphasis I'm attempting to make in the video. It's just, look, man, this is a risk. Come into it with a budget that you're willing to lose, and you'll be a lot more comfortable. And like I said, that has a lot of monetary benefit for me when people are willing to like just be comfortable with the fact. It also, in my world as a marketing agency, creates like a lot better deals. You know, it creates people that are a lot more comfortable with what they're doing. You occasionally come across somebody who, as chill as they might seem when they first start, you know, as soon as you start spending dollars, it's like within hours they're tweaking the fuck out and wondering when the money's gonna come back, and like not being patient and not allowing the necessary data to accumulate to start making decisions or even see if something's working or not. And those deals, like, they never work out. You know, they're always a waste of time for us. We need this kind of thought more so in anything else inside of our client relationships. So for us, once again, as a marketing agency, it's a great clip. For you, as an example, you just need to make sure, like, if there's any kind of risk associated with what you're doing, that you plant it into the head of a viewer prior to them taking that action with you. Like, well, how should they think about the risk? That's what we're accomplishing here with our piece of content we just had. So, okay, let's go to the next one. One of the worst times to advertise, we're in what I call the black swan event during this particular year.
Adding on Facebook.
Yeah. So listen, so advertising, right? This time in Q4, 70% of the entire year, for all 12 months, 70% of the entire year's ad spend is spent in October, November, and December.
Of course.
Okay, but listen to this. This year's an election cycle on top of that, right? Think about the amount of additional money that's spent during November and October leading up to this presidential election. Every single House of Representatives seat is up for re-election or for somebody else swapping in place. Think about the quantity of dollars that you're essentially competing against when you advertise as either favorable conditions or unfavorable conditions. So if you were going to advertise, an example, like let's say you wanted to start advertising and you were like, oh, Jamie, I want to start next month.
Yeah.
Like I'd be like, dog, that's like literally worst case scenario. Like you'd set yourself up for like literally the worst possible statistics ever, even if everything was perfect.
Gotcha.
And would otherwise work during any other
like
time.
What Brandon was talking about.
Everything else was perfect. You see, and like if you didn't know that, as an example, like you'd go into advertising, all your shit could be perfect once again, and you still get fucked. Like you'd be toast, okay? In comparison, there's certain months out of the year, remember like January all the way up through September, those other 9 months, dude, once again, 30% of the entire year's ad spend is spent during that window. That's one of the best times to test. That's one of the best times to like tweak stuff. Great expectations video. In addition to that, and this is pretty critical to understand, there's like multiple points within this that I make, right? Timing in advertising makes a big difference to the probability of success or failure. You know, once again, whether you're competing against big dogs or not, just whether it's Q4, it's essentially good framing around like when's the best time to launch stuff, because at the end of the day, like there's many different layers to this, okay? I have people that work with us as an agency. I have people that come into our inner circle that work with us, and I get to one-on-one with these people and group coach them. I get people that come in and just buy my courses that, yeah, I get touch points with and I get to talk to. Not everybody will talk with me inside of the communities, but these people will take my courses and my advice. And then on top of that, I have ad strategies that I teach and like just, general marketing lessons. Like here I am on YouTube doing it, where you might not buy literally anything from me ever, but you'll go try what it is that I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, like you'll go out there and you'll say some shit, whether it works or not for you. Like, oh yeah, I learned this shit from Jeremy Haynes, like it worked, or oh, it fucking didn't work, fuck that guy, And to be clear, like this video, it really touches every single person that I just articulated. It's expectations for those demographics across all 4 of these spectrums, okay? It doesn't necessarily do anything when it comes to like risk management or expectations. It's more so just, okay, here's how you need to be thinking about advertising. And if you try some shit out during one of the most chaotic times of the year, and this is a timeless video in the sense that obviously there's a Q4 every single year that happens, you know what I mean? And every 4 years, there's that same election cycle that happens, at least here in the United States. So it holds true consistently. This is like a, once again, timeless piece of content. So really love this when it comes to the category, once again, of just helping people be framed on how to think about, when they're doing what. So it helps people when it comes to the framing of just how to think about everything that's going on in the advertising world. Timeless video, one that I think I can use again and again and again. To be clear, if you've liked this video, first of all, like it, comment your feedback, or maybe a piece of content that's influenced you through the years. And more importantly than anything else, if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and drop us a subscribe. We have content like this all the time. I do recommend, if you have not watched this particular video from me yet, my editors will probably throw it up in one of the corners here. I did an entire video just explaining what propaganda is, how I use it in advertising. I specified specific spots in the advertising process that I'll use specific pieces of content, like what we've talked about here. This video, to be clear, is to kind of follow up what we just did, to be clear. This is to follow up on how, as an example, if you guys are going out there, look, people making $1 million months, you're going on podcasts all the fucking time, You have all kinds of opportunities, whether it's your own or other people's, to go out there and kind of clip farm. But I don't ever see a lot of people do it intentionally from the perspective of like, here's how I'm gonna use it in an evergreen way in my advertising and sales strategies forever. And that's what I do every time I go and I make any kind of content. I think to myself, how is this gonna be used inside of my advertising process? So therefore I can be a lot more intentional about it. To be clear, we talk about a lot higher level shit than this inside of my Inner Circle program, which I'd encourage that you join into if you are rich trying to get a hell of a lot richer. We do quarterly masterminds in person here in Miami, Florida. In addition to that, we have weekly group calls on Saturdays at 11 a.m. You can request whatever topic you want. Those are always bangers too. We do one-on-one calls in the group. You are welcome to book something out with me if you'd like. And on top of that, we have a group chat full of all the members. Most recent, we've had, I think in the last like 45-ish days, a pretty good chunk of people join in. And the most recent people, the lowest one was 130K a month and the highest was 900K. We've had a lot of heavy hitters joining into the group. And if you want to be amongst people like that, we're all very open. Group chats is extremely active. There's a link for it down in the description. There's also links if you think you're one of the big dogs out there who can work with our marketing agency directly, you can apply below. There's a pretty strict criteria for that, to be clear. We'll most likely, once again, refer you over to the Inner Circle in the instance that you're not qualified for that, which, to be fair, once again, like we take a very small stable of clients. So regardless, if you're in the market for trying to hit $1 million months, fill out that application and there might be an opportunity where we can work together. And if you're not in the market for either one of those, we got our Master Internet Marketing program. In addition to that, I got my High Ticket Agency program. There's some previews of those programs that you can get access to below in the description as well. Hope you liked the video, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.